This is the I Love Success podcast. I'm Peter Jumrukovsky, and I have made a vow to myself to help as many people as possible to achieve their dreams. Let's get started. Hey guys, and welcome back to the I Love Success podcast. This week, I'm sitting down with Frank Shamrock, a true MMA legend. He holds multiple world records and has been a champion of every major league in the sport. I mean, this guy is incredible, but his life started out with abuse, going to juvenile prison, and all kinds of crazy things. But he showed if you take away the victim mentality and decide to change, you can do it. So kick back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode. Let's welcome Frank Shamrock.
Hello.
Hello, you are truly the legend, and we're in the house here today. I'm honored of having you and just sharing your journey. I know you talked about this a lot of times. I watched your documentary, really liked it, and I want to try to go deep with you here today, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I want to start with one question that I ask all my guests, and that is, who are you as a human being?
As a human being, I like to say I'm kind and I'm honest, and I like to think I'm a good human being. But
That's good.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And can we just start by exploring you when you were a kid? And can you talk a little bit about your early life with me?
Sure. Yeah. Well, mine is just as I look back now, it's just been 30 years of exploration and learning. But for me, it started when I was 11 years old. Because when I was 11 years old, I threw rocks at a train, and I got arrested. I got sent to juvenile hall, and it was the very first time I'd been out of my household for more than a day or two, and it was the first time I hung out with other people and I communicated with them. And I was just talking to kids about, the things that were happening to me in my household and being locked in closets and like all this different types of abuse that was happening to me that I didn't know. I thought it was perfectly normal. And I just had this epiphany when I was 11 or maybe just about 12 that there was something really wrong in my house and that I didn't know. Like I didn't understand. I was always sent to these psychiatrists and I was sent to all these doctors and I was always trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And it turned out I was just being, psychologically abused and traumatized on a regular. But what I heard when I was in juvenile hall, and they were like, listen, if you keep doing this, they're going to take you from your home. What I heard was, listen, if you keep doing this, they're going to take you from your home.
Yeah.
So I saw what I thought was a path to get out, and I just became a criminal. Like I was like doubled down on crime.
Yeah.
And that became my life for years and years. And I just thought that's how you escaped these things.
And how was it to realize that how you were brought up wasn't normal or the way of showing love? How was it for you to realize that?
Well, I didn't realize that anything was different. Yeah. Like I just felt differently.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know. I just felt, like I think a lot of people feel today. I felt full of anxieties and fears and issues, and because the things happening around me were out of my control and they were wrong and they were damaging. I didn't know any of that. I was a 10-year-old, 9-year-old, 11-year-old kid just trying to like have a successful life. Like I thought we were all on the same path. So it's a huge wake-up call when you realize that your core parenting module, all of that is not right. And so all I heard was crime, you get out, and then the people, they were nice, to their credit. And it's so weird. And I tell this to people all the time when I speak on stage. I was like, people just, shared love. Because they were like, wow, you're messed up, man. Like, you need some help. And they stopped to help me. But that act of kindness was like, wow, they're really nice to me in juvenile hall. They're really nice to me in,
That's crazy.
in foster. So they're really nice to me in all these other places. And I was like, well, I should go there. And so it just became this social switch where I was like, I'm going to do whatever is necessary. And when you're 10 or 11 or 12, the world's very small. It was just the books I read and the things that had happened to me by then. And it was really small. So it was like a crazy, escape and adventure to get out, to get away.
Did you ever have a chance to reconnect or talk to your parents about this, or was that a closed chapter for you?
I talked to my mom about it, and she, said she was sorry. Yeah. But, as I look back, what is she gonna say? She was a 20-year-old hippie girl from LA. Who had 4 kids and lived in a cult and had no education and had been taken from her family of stability and security and thrust into insanity and abuse. So she just did what she did, what was normal. And it wasn't until I'm honestly until my 30s when I look back and I'm like, wow, I can't believe all of that just kept happening, and nobody spoke up, nobody said anything, like nobody kicked open a door. But that's what I do now on stage. Like that's what I see my gift is. I learned through teaching martial arts and through helping people and through developing this ability to fight, how to communicate that stuff and how to help people communicate. And you can literally come back from anything, and there's nothing that can really take your soul unless you give it away. Like that's at its core, and that's what I realized from the whole journey. I was ready to go all in when I fought. I was there for the death. Like I was I'm not sure what the other team
real warrior,
but I was like, okay, family, let's pray. Like let's make sure everything is cared for, because I'm going to go in and give 1,000. And if I don't come out, like it's cool, everything's cared for. Like this is my existence. And so, when you commit to something like that, you've learned so much about yourself and other people, and that was my journey. And it wasn't until it was over that I realized how powerful it was. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, we're going to talk a lot about that and honoring your journey, which is amazing. I had a guy actually last episode called Khalil Rafati. He's the owner of Sun Life Organics in Malibu, and his journey has been crazy. And his parents treated him very bad, but he realized now they didn't know any better. So he actually forgave them, even though it was crazy. But how have you forgiven your parents? Or
totally. And I've told them and I understand. It's not that I'm a victim. It's just these are the circumstances that happen in my life. But part of the warrior's code is forgive, but don't forget. Because if we forget, then we're going to do it again, and then we repeat, and that's not moving forward. So I get it, but like it'll never happen in my household or to my children or to my generation of people, because we learned. We moved through it.
And then you met Bob, right?
Yeah.
Moved in with Bob.
And I met Bob Shamrock.
How was that?
It was amazing. Because he was the first. I never had a dad, and I had my stepdad Joe Holleran, who's passed. He stepped up to be a father to 4 little tiny kids and his own kids, and so. But he was very stern. He was very strict, and in my household, it was everything was against my stepdad, and mom was in that. Like it was this weird world of, he's a bad guy because he's doing these things to us. And in hindsight, he was caring for everybody, and he just didn't. He came from Vietnam, and he had this whole other trauma and all these other issues of abuse and mental issues. But he was trying to do the right thing, and I had people in my life who tried to do the right thing, and my parents, I think, tried to do the right thing, but
they just didn't know any better.
They didn't know any better. You don't have education. You do what you know. You do what you're taught. You do what you're comfortable. You do what you feel.
Is that an excuse?
No, it's not. But that's why it doesn't happen in my household. And if it did, that's an excuse. Do you know what I mean? Like, nah, it's over. Because we're like, whoa. Let's get all that in the open. My daughter hears these stories in storytelling format. Not like, oh, it was terrible. This is what happened. And this is why you should never let that happen to you, and be aware. And she's like, wow, that's wild, Dad. But I'm not telling her like I'm blaming somebody. I'm telling her like this, there's a unicorn running through the forest, and this is what's happening. And if you look them in the eye, you're going to turn into a magical being. So they're just stories.
But it's I think when we look at people, I study success. This is what I do.
Yes.
And what I've learned, that people like you who do the extraordinary, you forget about the victim mentality. You're not a victim. You create something out of it. And then we have all these people in the world that are experience trouble, and it's always someone else's fault, right? And it might be, but when we put the blame on someone else, we can't change, right? And I want to talk about that, like when did you realize that you were not a victim and you were you could create something out of yourself?
It wasn't until I ended up in prison that I really woke up. Yeah. Like I woke up, I was 18 years old and I was sitting in prison and I had, 3.5 years to do. Yeah. And I sat down and looked at everything and realized there was a ton of people who were kind to me, who were patient, who tried to help me, who gave me good advice, and I listened to the stuff I wanted to listen to, and I did what I wanted to do because I was so angry and upset and damaged, and I put myself in prison. Like I literally woke up and I was like, wow, I'm in prison. I got 3 or so years. There's no way I'm getting out. And I was like, and I'm all these things. Like I looked in the mirror and saw the truth. And I think when, like with a lot of things, when you reach your bottom or when you lose everything, you make a decision. And all I ever wanted to be was a dad. All I ever wanted to be was a champion, to be successful, to help people, to lead people. And I was sitting in prison and doing none of that. And that was my wake up. And I literally went, whoa, this is not how champions, this is not how people that choose success move forward. This is how people spend the rest of their life in prison.
And if you can go back to that moment, you were about 18 years old and you're in prison looking at yourself in the mirror. What do you see? How do you think about yourself at that point?
At that stage, I was all the things that put me there. So a liar and a cheater and a thief and a manipulator, like all the stuff that...
You own that?
Yeah. That was me. No, I had a manila folder, which used to have my parole papers and stuff in it. And one day I took them out and I was like, no, this is going to be my future. And I wrote on the front all the things I was. And I wrote on the back all the things I wanted to become. And in the middle, I put all the work needed to get from point A to point B. But on the front, it was cheater, liar, convict, criminal, no dad. Like it was all the things I was. Like I wasn't there. And, the beauty of prison is you have plenty of time to have personal reflection and to make some decisions. And you have plenty of time to sit with yourself and to move forward if you choose to. Yeah. And most people just, plug into that system and keep moving their other thing forward. And, I decided not to. I was like, I have to change this because this is not who I am.
But how did you do that? Because at that point you were not a martial artist, right?
No.
At that point you didn't have any good role models in your life. How did you learn and knew that I have to create a plan and start working on it? Because this is basically goal setting, right?
Yep.
Who taught you that? Or
it wasn't taught to me as much as it was just that there was no options.
Yeah.
So I knew the body was a blessing. When I was 13, I was shredded. Like my daughter has a 6-pack. I was the same. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Yeah. And the minute I touched weights, I just went crazy. And so I knew the body was an investment. Yeah. And the first real dad I had was Bob Shamrock. He really just was like, listen, that's great. No BS. Here's how you become a man. And he really, pushed this athletics and your body and your mind and, developing your spirit and your ability to lead. And he really believed in the arts and the athletics. And so he was the first guy who was like, you're gifted. He's like, look at you. Like, look at your body. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Because I never really looked at myself. And, it's like you're genetically gifted. He studied bodybuilding. So he's like, you're a freak.
Yeah.
And I was like, you can make a fortune. He's like, if you just focused on one of these things. And so when I was in there, I was like, God, he believes in me. There's this investment. When you spend 3.5 years focusing on your body and doing nothing else but lifting weights every day and learning how to develop it, like you will become a monster. Yeah. And that's what I did. But it was because he believed in me and he had this belief in the arts. Like you could totally take your body and use it as currency, as form, as performance, as whatever, you chose to. And, it reminded me of what, my very first job, and I hadn't even forgot this till my brother passed recently, is Joe, my stepdad, Joe Hollerman, was like, you don't need anything to make money. You don't need anything to become successful. All you really need to do is try. And everything around you is just sitting here. And all you need to do is open your eyes and recognize. And we're like, what are you talking about? We're like 8 years old. And he goes, look up in this tree. He's like, this is mistletoe. He's like, mistletoe you can sell for 25 cents a bundle. And someone just has to climb up that tree, get some red yarn, tie it up and make a sign and stand in front of the supermarket. And he's like, you two boys could go make like $10, $20 in the next couple hours if you really want to.
Yeah.
It's like, but you need to think differently. Like everything is everywhere. Yeah. And it's like, but you're worried about where's the quarter, where's the penny, where's the dime. Yeah. He's like, no, you can build anything you want. So he was the first guy to have these just crazy, visionary ideas of building things. And he was an entrepreneur. Joe Holland was an entrepreneur. He ran his own Joe's Appliance Service. He ran his own business. So I learned how to build things, and through him I learned to have a vision. And even though he was abusing me and all this horrible stuff was going on, he was still teaching me and guiding me and teaching me how to use tools and giving me these larger than mind thoughts. And then my second business was mowing lawns. He's like, oh, you want to make money? He's like, you guys are good. Let me show you how to make real money. And then the minute I made money, and that he loaned me his lawnmower, he loaned me all of his equipment. Yeah. And then the moment the money came in, I had $30. We sat down and he goes, great, let me teach you the next lesson in business. I own the mower, that's $1. I own the gas, that's $1. I own the oil, that's $1. And out of every $5, he made $3. Yeah. He goes, here's your next lesson in business. If you own everything and it's your stuff, you make all the money.
Assets, right?
And I was like, oh, wow. So he really and he wasn't even aware of it. He was just trying to be a good, father figure in that time. But those things stuck with me. And then when Bob came along, it was like, your body's the investment. Your personal worth and self and what you stand for and your word, like that's the investment. That's the thing that has the value. That's the character.
How was it to live with Bob? How many kids were in his home, and like how was it to live there?
It was just living in the Shamrock Boys Ranch was just crazy, because it was 20 plus, so 20 to 25 boys. Wow. Living in one house. It's a big giant house in the middle of the country. And everybody's like a troubled kid. So, and it's every race, it's everything, it's everything you could ever imagine. And this was the last stop before you went to, youth prison or work camp. This was like the bad boys got sent way up in the country in this big old house, and Bob whipped him in shape. And he did. We sat down every night as a family, 25 boys, and we had a meal. And it was like regimented, and the rules, and it was the first time I was like, wow, this is the stuff. Like, this is the family structure. And even though our family was all crazy and jacked up, it was still a family, and it was still that thing that you could build and grow on and scale. Like I could see it. I was like, this makes sense. Every other family unit before that didn't make sense. It was weird or scary or unforeign or. And Bob was like, dude, this is how it is. This is how a man acts. This is how you build. This is how you grow. And it starts here in the body.
Why do you think he wanted to help you guys?
I mean, Bob was just a wonderful human being, and he couldn't have his own kids. Yeah. And he grew up here in LA. His father owned a textile business downtown, and he saw Skid Row. And he was at my daughter's age, 10, he was out serving the homeless and feeding them. And they were deeply religious. So he saw this experience, and it really affected him. And so when he was like, well, we're going to have kids, and then we're going to have a ranch, and he was always going to combine these two worlds, make this give and help and thing, two different worlds. And he just couldn't have his own kids. So it ended up being the world. Yeah. He was just like, well, that's not going to work, so I'm going to adopt Ken, and then, I'm going to adopt Frank. And so he made his world. He always wanted to be a bodybuilder. He always studied the human body, and he thought it was amazing. And he came from an era when, the understanding of the human body was just exploding, and bodybuilding was very new. So he was enthralled by it. And I got that same passion before I spent 3.5 years in prison studying the human body, like bodybuilding. Like I read every magazine, like, biomechanics. Like I'm the biggest nerd on the planet. But it all came from Bob's love of the body and understanding of it. And then, his belief was you could build this up and make money with it. Like there's opportunity. And it wasn't until I was just about to get out before he laid down the opportunities, and I was like, here's your chances.
And your brother Ken, at that point, was he already an MMA fighter, or?
Yeah, he'd already started in wrestling, professional wrestling. He'd already started. MMA had just started.
Yeah.
Like I got out in 1994, and mixed martial arts had really started in the country in '93.
Yeah.
And in Japan, it really started firing up in the a few years before. Yeah. But it was never the freestyle kind of open combat that it is today.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was very successful as a stripper. He was very successful in a bunch of different ways.
He used his body as a tool for currency.
He used his body. Yeah. So when I got out, my dad, 2 weeks before I got out, he sat me down. He's like, "Hey, here's your chances. Like you could be a fighter. This whole thing's taken off. It's a brand new sport." And he laid it out like it's a collegiate martial arts sport.
And you had never done any martial arts.
No,
never thrown. You thrown some punches maybe outside.
Yeah,
I got a good street fighter.
Well, I never lost a street fight.
Yeah.
That's why I'm still here.
Yeah.
I never lost a prison fight. That's why I'm still here.
Yeah.
But I never sought them out, or it was always to defend myself and to deal with the situation that was necessary. So yeah, I didn't know how to fight at all. Like I was deathly afraid of fighting. Yeah. But I was also like, I can't be a stripper. Yeah. Like it just, when I looked in the future, it wasn't me like with long hair in my 50s, like shaking my butt. It just, I was like, that's not me. Yeah. So I thought, I just felt differently about it. And I was like, I could be a fighter, and it was always my dream to be a champion. Yeah. I just didn't know what it was.
Why did you want to be a champion?
As I look back, it was I think it was the physical accomplishment and then the presentation afterwards, of a champion. Yeah. And when I was a kid, I didn't get to watch TV. We didn't watch TV. There was one TV, it was in Joe's room. And when we watched TV, it was boxing. Yeah. And so my only, visual experience outside of the occasional movie was boxing and the story of boxing. And I would dream about it. And I would just, I would see myself on stage as a champion, because it was the only visuals I had outside of, Star Wars back in the day. And then every book that I read. And I was the biggest nerd ever. I read a bazillion books. But those visuals of the fight, and then, the conclusion and the hero and then the speech and that whole thing was like, man, if I could become that guy, like that would be the thing for me. And when I was locked in the closets, and I used to live in the backyard, like I used to live in the tool shed, for like a quarter or something, and I would just lay there and just dream, like that's what I want to become. That's what would make me feel, complete. And so that, when Bob was like, you could be a stripper or fighter, I was like, well, funny you should mention that.
I had some time to think about that. Yeah. It's awesome. And I watched your documentary, Bound by Blood. Yeah. And then Ken was doing he had a gym at that point, right? And you were going there for your initiation or whatever it is. Can you just talk about that, and what's your opinion about doing things like this to see if people can be strong enough or whatever?
Well, I'll tell you the story first, and I'll tell you my opinion.
Yeah.
So, it went just like this. I went out one night, the day after I got out of prison. The next day, my dad drove me to the dojo. And it's like an industrial building behind some, car stereo store, like in this industrial complex. And he literally just drops me off, and he's like, all right, gives me the big dad moment. And he's like, don't show him you're scared, and don't give up. And I was like, wow, okay, that's like really heavy. So I'm like, all right, big hugs. And I go in, and then it just, back in the day, there was this huge physical tryout that was also designed to be a psychological breaker to see if you really wanted to fight. And it involved extreme physical conditioning followed by 20 minutes of sparring. And the sparring was just meant to push you to the edge until till you broke. Yeah. And I've seen hundreds of people. He's the biggest man, the strongest man you've ever seen. Break, cry, crawl out the door, run out the door. And I didn't. I just stayed. And Ken was the guy who tried me out, because Ken remembered me as a punk kid, criminal, knucklehead, and that was the last time I saw him. I spent 3.5 years in prison, rebuilding myself. He didn't see that because he wasn't there. So he saw the punk kid, and he just beat me until he was trying to make me, quit, because that was the job. It was the worst thing that's ever happened in my life, because I'd never been beaten like that physically. And prison fights last 20, 30 seconds. People get stabbed with pencils, people get clubbed, and it's over. Street fights the same. So it was just, I didn't even know you could tap. No one, because I wasn't in the world. I was in prison. I'd never seen a pay-per-view. I didn't know you could tap. It was really, really tough. Like, it'll be something I never forget in my life. And my thoughts on it are, I don't think it's necessary to put people through that, because I think there's other ways, both physically, psychologically, and through social group stuff, that you could fatigue people, question their commitment, stuff like that. But in the day, that was the leading science.
And it is like that in all martial arts. I remember when I went to the first national team camp, the guys there, they beat the shit out of us, and
that's how it works.
It was like a weeding out process, because the next camp, half of them, the guys were gone. And
we look at the Navy SEALs. I mean, they're not, powder puff, and they're trying to drown each other and see who rises to the top, to see who's going to survive. So I get it, but I think now there's better ways in through performance and through otherwise that you can kind of test that desire.
But do you think we are a weaker generation now? Physically and mentally, or?
Well, I would have to say, sadly, yes. Only because I recently consulted with the Army recruiting division, and their numbers, it used to be like 6 out of 10 got through boot camp and got in. Now I think it's 3 out of 10, and that's for all armed services, because they're not, they played video games for a decade before they get to the age necessary to go do these things, and they're not ready. They're not physically prepared, so they're getting broken and hurt trying to get ready. Before we had athletes, we had a generation of people who were physically more robust. So I would say physically, our younger population is losing some of their, edge. Mentally, I think our generation has never been stronger, but also been under more duress. Both through social media and just whatever, everything that's happening in the world right now. I think this generation has never been under more psychological stress. That's what I see.
I think it's interesting, and I think all these gender roles, how is it to be a man or a woman or whoever you are, like, it's changing a lot, but our DNA is still the same. So I think there's a lot of confusion going on now in the world. How should a man act? How should a woman act? And what does this even mean in today's society? Because there's not so much danger, right? And I don't know what's right or wrong, but it's interesting to see the development, because we teach a lot of kids, and a lot of kids today, they're not taught to say hi and shake the hand. They're very frightened. They're liking their iPads, but the social skills are getting worse. So I think we have a lot of challenges in that sense. So you did MMA, or did you guys call it MMA at that point, or what did you even call it? Cage fighting, or like?
Back then it was called No Holds Barred.
No Holds Barred.
That's the actual name of the sport. No Holds Barred. I was in Pedro's era. No Holds Barred. Little NHB action.
Yeah. Awesome.
Pre-MMA.
And you trained for about 6 months before your first fight, right?
Yeah. I trained under Ken in the system that he learned in Japan. So it was very much a submission wrestling type system. The 10 basic positions, constant movement. It was more of a performance-based grappling system.
And that's pretty fast to become a professional athlete after 6 months, right? And getting right into the action in a big arena in Japan. Can you just talk about that experience?
Well, I was completely unprepared, psychologically and in every other way, because I spent my life in prisons and in all these places. So after 6 months, Ken comes in to the dojo and he's like, hey, the King of Pancrase tournament is coming. They want you to be in it, but you got to fly to Japan 2 months early and finish your training. I was like, okay. I was still on parole. So I had to get my parole officer. Like, there was a whole other, legal writ, conversation to get me to Japan on parole so I could finish my training. And then I lived in the Japanese dojo and trained with the Japanese young boys as if I was like a Japanese young boy. And learned all the traditional Japanese ways, cleaned the floors, I did all the stuff. And then within 2 months, or within a month or so, they told me who I was going to fight. And I was Boss Rutan.
Yeah.
And then I was just beyond terrified. Like I was just every day, because I went from prison to training in the dojo every day, to living in Japan, training in the dojo every day, where no one speaks English. Yeah. And then they're like, all right, you're going to fight this insane Dutch guy in about a month.
Oh, that's
Good
crazy.
luck.
Yeah.
And every day I'd wake up, I'd just be like, oh, this is the worst day ever. Like, it's so scary. It was so terrifying. And I would just train and just try to stay focused and keep my notes. And what really saved me in hindsight is I journaled and kept every single thing written down. Every technique, every training session, every drill, everything. And then I went back and I was like, how does that work on the biomechanics? Where does this technique fit into the thing? And I was so afraid that I hyper-focused on the mechanical side of learning how to fight. Yeah. Because that's what I thought would be my savior. And it was. That's why I didn't get my ass kicked all those times.
And I think like you're a very intelligent person, and that's why you were one of the, if not the first MMA fighter who was versatile in that sense, that you could wrestle, you could do the submissions, you could do the stand-up. Before, when you started, it was more like a karate guy and a boxer.
Yeah.
And so you had an incredible mindset very early, probably because you have studied the body and you saw like a warrior's code. And we're going to talk much more about that, because I'm a karateka, and we are all about Bushido, right? The way of the fighter, the warrior's way. So how did it feel doing this fight and winning it?
It felt amazing winning it, but I didn't know. I mean, I couldn't tell anything. It was a whole time warp thing. I've been in street fight, all that stuff. It's very quick, and it's very, time slows or time speeds up, and it just becomes this kind of blur that you can't see into. Yeah. And that first fight was like that, because I was so scared, and there was such a build up, and there was so much intensity in the moment. I have no idea what's going on with Boss, but with me, it was just overwhelming. And so I remember a couple of key moments in the fight when he kicked and broke my nose, or the first time he kicked my leg, because I went, oh my gosh, like it was just horrible. He like collapsed my leg, and then I remember him kicking me in the face with that front kick that broke my nose, and then I remember him choking me and saying, oh, I've got you. And this
he said that during the fight?
In the fight. And then I remember being in a leg lock position, and he goes, I am so strong. And he was talking to himself, is what I realized in hindsight. He's my friend now.
Affirmations.
I realized he was talking to himself. He was building himself up. He was focusing on himself. I was just like, this is insane. I can't believe this guy's talking to me. And then it was over. Yeah. And then I stood up and I'm like, what just happened? And it was 10 minutes. And the whole fight was 10 minutes. Yeah. And then, 30 seconds later, they raise my hand and I'm the winner, and instantly I'm famous. And I go from being, an unknown convict, guy sweating in a gym, to somebody who's a rock star in Japan.
and how did that feel to be, now you're if we look back, you started writing these things, I want to be a champion, now you're on that route, how did that feel? Were you hooked on that feeling, or were you ever thinking about going back to doing crime or the easy way, or that was just gone?
All gone. Yeah, all gone. Now once I decided in prison that I was like, I'm done, this is, plus I saw all my friends, that's what really woke me up. Because I was looking at myself and I'm like, wow, I'm a loser. And then I'd look out the window and I'd see every kid I was hanging out with in the same yard for the past 6-7 years on the whole journey. Yeah. And I was like, wow, this is it. These are how this happens if you keep doing the thing. Yeah. So I just changed my mind. I went to college. I was going to college in prison. Everyone would tease me. Yeah. I'd be like, no, I'm going to college. And I would go learn about business psychology. So I just kept learning. And then when I got out, I kept the same mentality. I was in prison learning and going to college. So everything was written and studied and diagrammed. And, I'd ask people, hey, what do you think about this? I'd ask total strangers. And then the beauty of martial arts is I'd be training with thousands of people all over the world. I could be like, what do you think about this? And in so many different ways. And I was able to slowly develop this system, this fighting system. And I'm very proud to be the first complete fighter, because that was one of the goals. If you could become complete, no one would ever beat you. And I was like, well, that's bingo, that's me. I did that in the 90s.
No,
I was a super nerd.
You're pre-generation, and that's awesome. I love meeting with people that can see the future and act on it before everybody else does, because you're kind of setting the standard. And we see MMA today, how much it has evolved, and we see all these great breed of fighters who just started with MMA, and I think it's amazing to see how this sport grows. But you said something that I just want to ask before we talk more about MMA. You saw yourself as a loser at that point, and I know there are people watching and listening that might think about that about themselves. What would you say? What's the best tool to change if you look at yourself in the mirror and think, oh shit, I'm a loser. I made all these mistakes. I don't want to be a loser, but I have no clue on what's the next step.
Well, I say you are what you do. And I was literally, like, I was in prison.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get more losery than that. Yeah. So, you know, one of the big things the Warriors Code is, speak the truth. Yeah. The truth was that was me. Yeah. But the action was to stop doing that. I immediately was like, I will never do crime again. Like, I've never once ever committed another crime, because that was stupid. Yeah. That was a tool that I was using that did not pan out.
Yeah. Wasn't there any peer pressure in prison?
Oh yeah, totally. Peer pressure to join gangs, to do all that stuff.
How did you handle that?
That wasn't me. Like, I'm not. I went, but that's not me. Here's my character. Because my real character was different. Yeah. My real character is who I am now and what I stand for. Yeah. And I've always stood for most of those things. I just didn't know some of the stuff back then. Yeah. But the core stuff, man, we be kind, we help people. Like, that's the core of humanity. I'm a killing machine. Like, I could literally, I look at people and I size them up, I study their mechanics, and my mind goes, I can kill them in X amount of seconds. That's a mechanical process that I don't even have to think about. Yeah. People are like, well, how do you believe in God? I'm like, you don't understand the mechanical process that's happening in my brain. I'm a trained killing machine. Yeah. But I don't want to kill anybody. Like, I want to help people. Yeah. I was like, so if that's not God working, if that's not like the universe, if that's not what humanity's about, then we're all on the wrong journey. Yeah. Because that's, as I've seen, the most powerful and valuable thing is how we can help each other, how we can love each other, what those dreams are. Yeah. And, all those people were hurt like I was. Yeah. They weren't in prison. You don't get to prison when someone loves you to death and cares for you and makes you feel amazing and supports you. So, like, you don't get that way. Yeah. You get that way by not getting hugs every night and get locked in the closet and having drug addicted parents and being in places of abuse and being psychologically traumatized. That's how you get to prison. So all of those people I could see were just having as much pain as I did, but instead of moving forward or trying to do something, they were banding together and just doing what was necessary. Yeah. And I mean, people were like, oh, hey nerd, I'll kick your ass. Yeah. Okay.
You didn't back?
No. Okay, well, I'll see you later. Yeah. And there it's just power, and everything is a struggle for power because everything's taken from you. Yeah. Every ounce of self-respect and power and control has been taken from you. Yeah. So what humans do is we fight for anything, and we try to take anything we can to feel better. Yeah. And it comes from prison to concentration camp to gang to, it doesn't matter where you end up. It's all the same human need. And when it's not fulfilled, that's what happens. And you gotta, it all, fulfillment comes from inside. Yeah. Fulfillment is all in there, like Joe said. The mistletoe's just hanging. Yeah. You got to figure out how to get up the tree, get somebody to help you get it down, wrap it up and sell it. Like, it's all here. Yeah. But when you're thinking, I'll never get up the tree and my leg hurts and, no one's going to help me, it never gets done.
Yeah. And I mean, one thing I want to talk about with you as well, you became a UFC champion and you defended it a couple of times, and you decided to pull out because you saw these crazy contracts that the UFC did at the time. So you were not only a fighter, not only a new breed of fighter, but you also had that business mind in you. So can you just talk about first becoming a UFC champion, and then when did this mindset start? Like, I gotta take advantage of myself, and this was personal branding like a long time ago when this didn't even exist in a way as it is today, right?
Yeah. I had really good mentors. And that was part of my success, or a huge part of my success. Yeah. I didn't know what to do with my championshipness, but I knew everyone wanted me to hang out, give me money. Like I used to get paid, $10,000 to sit at the end of a table of a negotiation, so that some billionaire could be like, "Hey, you met the champ, right?"
Yeah.
Like that was it. Like so, I was seeing all this value and exchange around me, and I didn't know how to monetize, or I didn't know what to do with it. So I went, I better get somebody who does.
Yeah.
So I found a mentor in Hollywood who happened to be a big time entertainment lawyer.
How did you find him?
I asked a friend. He's like, "Hey, I told somebody my dream. This is where most people fall off. I told somebody my dream. I want to be a world champion, but the sport's not big enough and it's dying. I need to get into Hollywood. I need to understand how that works so that I can do the X, Y, and Z." And then it just happened to be the dad of my girlfriend who's like, "Oh, I know a guy." And he hooked me up with Henry Holmes. And Henry Holmes has been my lawyer, mentor, father figure now for 20 plus years. But I sat down with him like this and goes, "Well, tell me what you want to do." I told him all the stuff I wanted to do. And he said, "Well, let me tell you what's going on. This contract won't let you do it. Here's the barrier here. Here's what you need to do."
Was that after or before you signed the contract?
This was after I signed my first UFC contract.
Okay.
So I had, beaten Kevin Jackson in 14 seconds, Zinoviev in 20 seconds. Like I'd set all these world records. Like I was the biggest star that existed, and they wanted me to re-sign a new contract. And I was like, "Well, wait a minute. There's just no money." I mean, there literally was no money. I was still teaching all the time. And
how much did you get paid
jobs.
for a championship fight at that
I
time?
fought. My first fight was 10-10.
Yeah.
So I fought. 10-10. So I fought. Maybe it was 20-10. Either way, it's $20,000 and $30,000.
Yeah, 20 and 30 if you win.
Yeah. And then it went up like 40.
Yeah.
And then it went up 50.
Yeah.
So I was making okay money.
Yeah.
But nowhere near what other sports were making, what other industries were making, for the performance level I was doing.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, when I was 16, my right leg went numb. And I went to the doctor and like, "Oh, you've got a spondy in your lower spine. At some point you've broken your back, or you were born with this genetic defect." It's like, "You can't play contact sports. You need spinal surgery. You need and I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm the world's greatest athlete." So that makes no sense to me. I went to, and I was in a group home, so they sent me to another doctor. He was a chiropractor, and he said, "Yeah, something happened. You have this issue. It's a structural issue. You can totally maintain it, but you're going to have pain. You're going to have instability. You're going to have all these issues, and you're going to spend a lifetime maintaining that structure, or you're going to have surgery." And I was like, "Okay, I could still do that." And he's like, "And the hardest thing is you're going to have to deal with pain for 30, 40, 50 years. And if you're not careful, you're going to end up being a drug addict." And I was like, "Wow," I was 16 years old. I'm like, "Okay, well, that's profound." And then I just kept going on my journey. Yeah. It didn't dawn on me until I started fighting at that level. And, I'd fly somewhere, I'd kick 100 people's butts, and then my back would go out, and I'd just fall over, and I would seize up. And nobody really understood what was going on. Doctors, no one knew what was, like, if I could keep going or sustain it. Yeah. So I was always going, "Dude, this is a ticking time bomb. We got to get out." Like, there's always an exit needed when your machine's dysfunctional and not reliable. So as good as I was and all the skills that I had, the reason why I was always developing into a broadcaster, an entrepreneur, and the reason why I was always moving forward is it was a ticking time bomb with the machine.
You knew, yeah.
It is what it is. I broke something somewhere, and the only alternative is to stop for a year, cage it all up, wear a body cast, and then come back as a new person. And it's like, there's never been a year where I'm able or wanting to do that.
Yeah.
Who wants to do that?
Who wants to do that, yeah. And but I love what you said, and if I don't remember it wrong, your mentor helped you with this retirement clause, right?
Yes, 100%.
And you won against Tito Ortiz, right? Mm-hmm. And then you retired for a while. And now you're this champion, right? And you said before that when you were a kid, this will make you feel complete. And now we're there. Did you feel complete at that point?
No. I felt complete in my in that first accomplishment thing. Yeah. Like I felt like a champion. Yeah. But then I wasn't really sure what to do with it, to be honest with you. I thought becoming a champion would solve everything. And it didn't. I became a champion, and then I needed to figure out what to do. And that was where I found Henry. That's where I was like, I have no idea what to do. And I was watching my mentors. You know, thankfully my brother was a champion too, and you know, my coach Maury Smith was a champion. And I watched them, you know, a generation ahead of me, both with their money and their bodies and everything that happened in their life and marriages and stuff. And I was watching from afar and learning. And I was like, gosh, we got to avoid that stuff. You know, that's the stuff that takes your money and takes you down and, you know, breaks everything apart. So I was very conscious of what I had, because I thought, A, I was going to die at any moment fighting in a cage. And then B, I thought, this is it. Like, this is the asset. This is all there is. Everything is me. This is, you know, so I have to protect it. And then, you know, once I met Henry and I started figuring out that, you know, I could make this value anything. I could make it $1 billion if I wanted to. Then I started putting numbers on it. Then I started, you know, thinking, okay, we got to build. We need to grab assets. I started looking at it just a little bit differently. And that's why I got out of the contract. Because I was like, I can't perform the way I want to inside of this contract. They're going to get all the opportunity and the money. And once I did that, then I was able to leverage everything. You know, I just started taking equity of companies, and I started thinking about it differently. You know, I was like, hey, this is my pile.
Like
what's
a businessman.
Like? What's yours look like? And I'm like, oh, let's you know, split them up, or let's try this, or let's try that. And that's when, you know, my world opened up in the business side. Because I started launching shows on pay-per-view, and I started creating my own, you know, TV shows and movies, and then, you know, eventually a fight league. You know, eventually we started my own fight league. Because I was like, well, I'm going to need a place to perform.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that. And I mean, that's what it's all about. If we look at these, like, if we look at Mayweather, for example, he was also under a bad contract and bought himself out. And look at him today, what he has created in boxing. And we look at Conor McGregor, what he's doing today. And this is pre that. And you had that mindset long time ago. And we see it in business too, right? People that are good at something, they start their own business and create this kind of leverage. And I mean, you did well. You became a champion in Strikeforce as well, and VEC as well, right? And how, like, when did you know that I don't want to fight anymore? Or do you want to fight again?
Yeah, I knew in my last fight when I fought Nick Diaz. Because I was just, you know, you're always hurt leading up to a fight. There's always stuff going on, and I was always able to be a spokesman and a consultant and a fighter, and I was always able to have these 5 different hats and still turn that switch on, because I was, you know, I live a very focused and, you know, simple warrior life. Like my, you know, every day is kind of, you know, this journey. And so, but I went to switch it that night, and it just didn't go. You know, I was like, nothing happened. I was like, oh, he's beating the hell out of me, and so that was the first time my spirit was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, you turn the switch, the thing happens. Like, that's how it works. That's how you survive. And so it really made me question what was going on inside of me, and these hats that I'd put on, and, you know, my goals I was trying to accomplish. And so, you know, I took some time off. My daughter had just been born, and I was really hanging out with her. I think I was teaching her sign language at the time. She was like 10 months old, and I was like, because I read in this book that you could teach a baby sign language, and you can communicate with your baby, and they'll have less frustration.
That's it.
And I was like, this is amazing. I'm the biggest nerd on the planet, so I'm sign language with my baby, and all this stuff is happening.
That's cool.
And then, you know, the money, I mean, I was making $1 million a night or something insane to go out and perform. And I was searching for that thing. I was like, where's that thing at? So I went back to camp. I tried to get ready for a fight again. Like, I was like, I'm just going to do a mock camp and get everything together. Like, make sure my life's right, make sure my mind's right. And then I'm going to flip the switch and then see if it still does the thing. And I mean, I got 3 weeks in, and I was just like, there's nothing here. Like, there's no more desire to perform at the level I want to perform. I want to be the best. You know what I mean? Otherwise, I want to pick another game and go be the best at that.
I feel you. I mean,
that's how my brain works. Like,
no,
I don't want to get beat up. Like, oh, it's terrible.
You don't want to get beat up, especially from the young guys,
it
right?
Sucks. Yeah,
you
just get beat down.
I know. It's crazy. I was a world medalist in karate, and I was a national champ 8 times. And I know, like, at the end of my career, I always knew that I want to stop early, just because I knew if you do karate, there's no money involved. It's an amazing journey. You see the world, you meet all these people, and you get to fight. But I saw all these old champions who didn't have anything. And even though people make money in MMA, there's very few that make a lot even today. Most people that don't have the business mindset, they end up hurt and struggling, which is so sad, because becoming a champion is some of the most difficult things in the world. That's why I love that you had the guts to go out, especially when someone is waving a paycheck of a couple of $100,000 or $1 million. How do you say no to that? It's
very hard.
Yeah, like how,
very hard.
it must be crazy, because I mean, if that could save your family, I know a lot of fighters, they would say, I'll do it. Even if I lose, I still have the money, right?
But I would prepare for that moment as opposed to taking that need.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. I made sure I had guaranteed contracts, exit clauses. Like if I ever got hurt, I was cared for. Like to me, it wasn't just that fight.
Yeah.
It was that fight's going to build the league, which is going to make the network contract come in play, which is going to activate my back end on all these different. So to me, it was like, okay,
you're a businessman.
If I can't win
and
have the best performance possible, then we should remove that asset from the risk portfolio and focus on these other things. And most people, most fighters, struggle to get that fighting thing tight and be the best of the best of the best. And my journey was different because I became a teacher. Yeah. And when you learn to teach, and when you share, and when you learn how people learn, it changes your whole dynamic as a fighter, because A, you learn people better and how to hurt them more or help them more. But B, you're able to open yourself up. Yeah. And that's where you're so deep in the struggle, it's hard to then let people in and to be soft after that and sweet and kind, and because you get wrapped up in that too.
Yeah, I know. Like for me, it was the older I got as a fighter, actually, I started to realize I don't want to hit someone in the face anymore.
Hurt people. Wait.
Yeah, it started becoming like I want to teach, I want to elevate people, but once you're in there, it's me or you, right? So
and that's a natural human progression, is what I've seen. All the warriors go back and try to heal, help, or teach. The real ones. Yeah. The ones that just part time, they don't worry about it. They're like, we did the thing. But the people that were really there, like I was, and they just wanted to kill people because that's the journey. Yeah. The only thing that softens that is teaching and guiding and helping and moving that idea somewhere else.
And what does the Warriors Code mean? Who do you act? How do you act?
It's the morals and the cloth of martial arts. And then there's a couple of tools that I've found that have allowed me to achieve all this stuff. And the first one is the plus equals minus. That's so simple, but it's so powerful. It's just a life tool. And that is whatever you want, whatever you desire, whatever you're looking for, you find your plus. The person who's achieved it, the person who has it, the person who is in possession of it. And then your equal is your competition. Your person is in your space doing your thing, your business, your world, and you can meet them like this or like this. That's entirely up to you. But if you don't know what's going on in your space with your competition, then you're not even in the game. And then the last and the most important one is your minus. The person that you teach, the person that you pass this on to, whose life will then change because of this, because of your desire and because of what you hope to achieve. And so that is, I do most of my business life accomplishments just through that one basic module. And we have 3 or 4, and then, there's a few tenets to the things we live by, and they're be honest, be kind, live in love, do help people. And from, I've lived in all spaces. I've lived on the streets, being a killer, being a criminal, been all those things, Hollywood, movies. At the end of the day, we're all the same person. We're all human beings, and we all need the same things. And I've been blessed with so much. My job is to give some of that away and help people. And that's my legend and my legacy, because nobody that I've ever met has gone through a journey like this, and has been able to say, "Dude, let me give you some knowledge here." But many people have given me knowledge, helped me, loved me, supported me, who had nothing and no reason to. Zero. From foster people to judges to juvenile hall people to people have just went, that's a great journey. Let me help you. And that to me is the basis of it. It's like that's the core of the Warrior's Code, is when you can give somebody, when you can give something and help somebody, and you can both grow. That's where it's at.
I love that. And one thing that I forgot to ask you is also, you were this amazing guy with contracts and we're thinking about all these things. So what do you want to say to young MMA fighters, artists, creators they're growing and they're good, and then they get handed this contract, which is the dream, right? But it's a shitty contract. What do you do in that situation?
Find your mentor, find your help, find your plus, find somebody who's done it, because they've already experienced it. So they know yes, no, maybe, the good, the bad, the thing. I was blessed to find the best of the best. Yeah. But I also searched out the best of the best. Who's the guy who's doing the thing? Like, I want to change the world in sports. Who's the guy changing the world in sports? There was only one guy. And I just needed to find him, be humble enough I waited in his office for 4 hours. I got him on a break. And he, tell me your story, kid. And I had probably 5 minutes to win his favor, or go talk to that guy. And I told him my love, my passion, my thing. And he's like, wow, that's I'm in, just like that. But it's like, it took me years to find him. And then I got my time.
And you acted on it.
And I acted, and I showed up with my heart, passion in hand. This is what I want to do. I'm doing the impossible. I need your help. Just help me, and I'll, that's the thing. When you show up like that. There's a story in Japan about a gentleman who wants to do business with somebody, but he's of a much higher class, and he has no way to get in contact with them. And in Japan, if there's no connection, you're never in the circle. So he just waits outside of his place of residence every single day with an umbrella in hand, waiting for it to rain. And after 6 months, it rains. And so he opens the umbrella as he comes out, and he covers it for him. And the guy goes, oh, nice to meet you. The beginning of a relationship. But he had to stand there every day for 6 months awesome. With the umbrella in hand, waiting for it to rain. Because there's no, until you're there meeting your plus and until that moment happens, you don't have anything. So you got to find the right mentor. And then what I tell everybody, and it doesn't matter if you're getting married, if you're in business, if you're a fighter, if you don't define your brand and what your mission is and what your real goals are, like if you ain't writing your dreams down, then you can't possibly sign that contract. Because how do you know what you're going for? That's somebody else's dream and need and thing to get them to there. Until you write that down, and that's part of the Warrior's Code. Is if your dreams aren't clear, then what are you fighting? What are we doing? And the same in business. That brand should be clearly defined. That message should be clearly defined. That story should be, the legend, so that when people hear it, they go, oh, well, that's so and so. And let me tell you why. Most people don't do that. Fighters, artists, they go where the thing is, but the thing's inside. So you need to define that completely down to, this is my story.
No, I love that. I'm all about that. And this is actually my book. It's about goal settings, and it's all about writing down your goals. I'll give you one at the end, but I'm 100% in on what you're saying. And if we look at the people that I have on my podcast, almost all of them, they know what they want and they write it down. I want to talk about regrets in life, and I know everybody has regrets, and I want to ask you about Bob's funeral, and do you regret not going to it? Can you just talk about that?
No, I don't. I don't regret not going to his actual funeral, because it wasn't in my opinion, it wasn't a celebration of his life. That was all. And my experience with Bob was my experience. So we were able to have a ceremony and mourn him in our way through our family, the way we believed. But I just didn't believe that a social setting and that type of thing was the thing for my spirit to honor Bob.
And we all mourn in different ways, right? And I think this happens in a lot of family. People hold grudge because we mourn in different ways, and everybody acts different when death's around, right? And I don't think there's any wrong or right ways of doing it. Can you just talk about your relationship with your brother, Ken, and are you good now? Because I know in your film you met with him and you guys didn't talk for 15 years. Is that
15
correct?
years, yeah.
Is that a regret
That's
that
such
you
a
have?
long time.
That's crazy. Yeah,
It's such a long time.
But is that a regret or how like?
I can't say that I regret that. Yeah. Ken, like me, he's a warrior who grew up on the streets, literally surviving. Yeah. So his ability to trust people, love people, to share that is and has been as limited as mine at times.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we've never been able to breach that gap. Yeah. To trust and the brotherhood and to, there's always been some, financial opportunity or lever or other thing that has taken precedence.
Yeah.
And
it happens to everybody, right?
Happens to everybody.
But how do we do it better? Because we only have one life, and 15 years is a long time, right?
Yeah. Well, I realize in hindsight that because I felt indebted to Ken because of how he trained me and what he did for me, and but he was just doing what he thought he was supposed to do. Like he wasn't thinking about my journey. He was on his own journey, doing his own thing.
Like we are.
Like we all are. Yeah. So I can't infer or take a bunch of I can't be obligated to his journey. It's his journey. What I do to what I've always believed is you connect with human beings, they become a part of your fabric.
Yeah. And
Ken has just never been a part of my fabric.
Yeah.
And anytime I try to bring him into my fabric, it frails and it falls apart and it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I realize that his intentions and his journey and character and stuff are just vastly different than mine.
Yeah.
And they don't mesh.
Yeah.
The code that I was taught is different.
Yeah.
And it may have been the way I perceived it, but it's different. It's honesty, kindness. Yeah. It's those principles. So I can't live in a space that's not that. Yeah. And like my own younger sister, I haven't talked to her for years. But she brings discomfort and displeasure and abuse and trauma because she's not dealing with that stuff in her life. Yeah. And I don't want that in my family. Yeah. It's totally unnecessary, and that's what I've realized after trying to help Ken. I used to just send him business deals. Yeah. I would negotiate them on his behalf and send him money because I felt obligated. Oh, we should have. Now he's having a hard time. And I'm like, wait a minute. I woke up one day. I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, I'm taking money from my family and this makes no sense. Yeah. And I just stopped one day. But because I was hurting and because I had issues, I felt this weird obligation to do that. Yeah. And in the real world of business, that's insanity. Like that makes no sense whatsoever.
We all have family, and it's not easy. One thing that I also want to ask you in your documentary, you met one of your brothers, Perry, that is homeless, and I just want to ask you. Is it possible to help other people, or do we have to help ourselves? Like, because I know you felt bad when he called you for money and you didn't respond. Like, can you just talk about that and how can we help other people, or do they have to help themselves?
Well, I believe we can do both. Yeah. I believe we can help people and they have to help themselves. Yeah. And Perry's the perfect example. We, after the shoot, what most people don't know is, we went back and got him. Got him off the streets, cleaned him up, got him all fired up. But the moment it came time to, and he was with us for 2 weeks. Yeah. In those 2 weeks, he had connected with the homeless community and was shooting intravenous methamphetamines. Yeah. And so we're like, Perry, you can't, you're here to try to stop. Yeah. And then when it came time to go to rehab, he's like, I can't do that. I can't commit to 8 weeks of rehab. And he went back on the streets. And so, we helped as much as we could, but at the end of the day, it was Perry's responsibility to help himself. Yeah. And he wasn't going to stop, he wasn't going to stop with his addictions, and he wasn't going to stop, self-medicating. Yeah. And he wasn't going to accept help. So eventually, and that's why, it was really hard for me because, he would disappear for years and then pop up. And then I would go and I'd sit like this and be like, Perry, you can't sustain this. Eventually you're going to die. Yeah. They're going to call and be like, he's dead. You know, because you can't live like this. Somebody's going to kill you. You're going to die on the street. It's not safe. You know, it's like, so you got to stop at some point.
Yeah.
You know, and let us help you. Let us help you. And he, you know, he just couldn't. Couldn't find the space. But yeah, we should help people. I mean, it's part of the code. Yeah. You help people. If they don't help themselves, you know.
Yeah. But you do what you can.
You should help everybody. Yeah. I mean, my belief is real humanity is we should help everybody. Yeah. If they don't help themselves, well, they're going to get left behind anyways. Yeah. You know, but I'll reach back for anybody. Yeah. You know, who really wants some help.
That's amazing. And Frank, do you feel happy and complete in your life now?
I do. I for the first time in my life, have a wonderful calm about me. And part of it's the code, part of it's just how I'm living each and every day. But also, you know, I realized after raising my daughter, I was able to stay home for 8 years and just focus on my daughter. Yeah. And it was part healing, part teaching, part just, you know, living. But I realized in the process, like how damaged I was, you know, how messed up I was as a human being, and how much I was able to heal just taking that time, like in prison, just focusing on myself and my personal development. And, you know, that helped me heal my childhood, taking the stage and sharing, you know, these experiences and sharing this stuff has really opened up, you know, my ability to communicate and my emotional stability and capacity. And yeah, I mean, for the first time, I feel at peace. You know, and I don't want to kill people, and I want to talk to everybody. Like I feel really good about everything in my life.
That's awesome, and I mean, I was so happy when I contacted you and when you responded, and now meeting you, and I feel I've done martial arts since I was 6, and you're one of those people that you seem like a true warrior. You know how you carry yourself, and that is something that I aim to be myself, and that's something that we want to do in the world, and that's what I want to do with this podcast. I want people to create a better life for themselves and give to others, so we can have, like, there's enough for everybody, and we can all win in life. I don't have to kill anybody, maybe kick someone's ass if I'm an MMA fighter, but that's for now, right? We're gonna meet in a different area of our lives later and become friends, creating businesses and just sharing. So before the last question, I just want to say thank you, and it's been an amazing experience meeting with you here today, and just seeing that no matter what you go through, and the people that are watching and listening to this, they can also realize that it is possible to change if you decide to change, right? Mm-hmm. Then people will start helping you, because it's that, like the universe, like The Secret. The Secret, I think the film might be a little bit miscarried, but you have to do the work first, and then people will give to you. And that's why I'm lucky to have people like you. I believe in the universe, because we send out some energy that we want to help, and then people like you say, yeah, sure, I want to give an hour of my valuable time to share, because I know it could help. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah. And last question to you is something that I ask all my guests, and that is, after watching and listening to this, if they can do one thing to get closer to their own dreams, what would that be to do right now?
I would just work out more. Only because I haven't worked out enough. Yeah. I mean, mine are clearly defined. Like I do a life plan for 100 years, because I figured I'd die 20 years ago. Yeah. So all the rest of this is just planning and preparing and enjoying, and and then what I would say to everybody, because I don't think people really truly realize this, and I only realize it because I've connected and trained thousands of people. I've grabbed thousands of people in the head and punched them in the gut and hit them with my shoulder and wrestled with them. And we're all energy. We're all just a vibration. We're all just a sound. We're all just this nice color. And when you do good things, when you have strong character, when you stand for stuff, when you have positive energy, when you're trying to help people, that vibrates at this glorious color and level, and it's attractive. and you feel the people that are vibrating like that.
Yeah.
Because you're attracted. You're like, wow, I'm not sure why, but I want to hang out with this guy and just, figure out what's going on. And so, if you are in a place of discomfort, if you don't know what to do, write it down.
Yeah.
Be clear about what you want to achieve, and then start vibrating that. Because people don't want to be unhappy. People don't want to be unhappy.
Yeah.
People want to be happy.
Yeah.
People want to vibrate nicely. People want to feel love and kindness, and when that's available, people are drawn to it, and they will help you.
Yeah.
And all you got to do is know what you want. And half the people are walking around going, I don't know what I want. Yeah. Oh, this looks interesting. Squirrel. Yeah. And when you know what you want, and that's what you're doing, then you'll quickly build that.
That's it. Thanks again, Frank, for doing this. And thank you guys for watching and listening to this humbling and life-changing conversation that I had with the legend Frank Shamrock. I'm super grateful that we could share this with you. If you like what we do, share this video and podcast with someone that can benefit from it. And if you need help with writing down your goals and creating a plan, visit ilovesuccess.co. I'll give you a couple of free chapters of my book, The Goal Book, which talks about all those tools, how you can write down your goals, and just start with one little thing to get closer to the dreams that you want. Thanks again, and see you guys next week.